All right. Shalom, shalom. I'd like to start off by saying Barakatah Yahweh, Barakatah Yahweh Shai, Kol Haloyim La Yahweh, Bahashem Yahweh Shai, Bahashem, Rachakodash. Double honors to the elders and apostles of Great Millstone who rule well. Blessings and salutations to the hopeful elect that's scattered abroad, the Akim and the Akwath that's listening in. Yahweh Ratazah, Lord willing that the lesson is edifying. It's the brother Shuab Amawan back at you with another lesson. And going into the title, all right, this is Blackouts Everywhere Part 2. All right, and I'm picking up from where I left off yesterday. All right, because the video was a 32-minute video, and I was already going in like 45 minutes into it, 40 minutes into it. So I didn't want to make it too long. All right, but this time I'm gonna pick up from where we were, which was at number 6. All right, the last one that was being spoken of was New York City. All right, and number 6 is going into Florida. Okay, so basically, if you were watching the first part, all right, I was going into all these different major cities that are going to be hit, all right, with blackouts eventually, and they were telling you the reason why, because how they're connected to main grids and how they're connected to certain things that will cause a big spark and blackouts. All right, so from going off of that, we're just going to press play and we're going to continue on. All right, and then I'll grab a couple precepts and close it out. So this is Florida, number 6.
From exploding, leaving tens of thousands without power when they need it most. Number 6 is Florida. And this isn't just about hurricanes, though those are certainly getting worse. Florida's real problem is explosive population growth combined with a grid that can't keep pace. The state is adding something like 1,000 new residents every single day, each one plugging in air conditioners, pool pumps, and electric vehicles. The heat and humidity in Florida are absolutely brutal on electrical equipment, transformers, substations, transmission lines. They all degrade faster in that environment. Salt air from the coast corrodes everything metal. The utilities are in this constant battle against nature just to maintain what they have, let alone upgrade for growing demand. Florida's natural gas dependency is also a massive vulnerability. Most of the state's electricity comes from natural gas plants, and that gas has to flow through pipelines that cross hurricane zones. When storms damage those pipelines or the compression stations that keep gas flowing, power plants can't operate. It's not just the storm knocking down power lines, it's the entire generation system failing. What happened in 2022 with Hurricane Ian really opened my eyes. Even areas that didn't get direct hits lost power for weeks because the transmission system couldn't handle rerouting power around damaged areas. The grid just doesn't have enough redundancy. Florida Power and Light is trying to harden this.
And that's definitely a main place that's going to be getting smacked with blackouts on a daily basis because it's a hurricane state, you see. And like how he was explaining, all these things being connected to gas pipelines and all that. See, this is why, you know, when that time comes, all right, for them cutting the lights off, especially in a place like Florida, you know, it's going to be a lot of shit going on, you know, with explosions, you know. They're able to, set certain places on fire, because of what it's connected to, you see. See, out here is not, I'm in Jersey, so around Jersey, they're not so much connected to so many gas lines and things like that, but there is a lot of power, electric places out here in Jersey, all right, that are connected one to another. So when we get a blackout, it's just going to be complete blackouts out here. All right, but certain places, all right, a big state like Florida, all right, they're connected to gas lines and all that. See, there's gonna be double trouble for them in that time, you see. So these devils know how to play that out, to the T, to put people in a certain predicament. All right. So continuing on.
System, but they're decades behind where they need to be. The cyber threat to Florida is also significant. The state has numerous military installations and critical infrastructure that make it a prime target. A coordinated cyber attack during hurricane season could turn a manageable natural disaster into a catastrophic grid failure lasting months. All right, number 5, And this one breaks my heart because
and
I love
that's
this.
what I mean. See, because they're connected to certain infrastructures. All right, once you cut the lights out in a place like Florida, that shit ain't gonna come back. It's gonna take, like he said, months, and if not months, might take more than a year just to try to get power kicked back on. You see, because they're not filled with places that have extra generators and shit like that. You see, but a place like New York City, New Jersey, Philly, see, these places have, extra access to generators, so they can they could basically turn on the power again if they have to, with a backup plan. But a place like Florida, that's just surrounded around, it's a peninsula, it's surrounded around water. You see, water on all three sides. So you can't have extra generators and shit like that out there, man, because of where they're at, where they're located. You see?
State, Arizona. The Valley of the Sun is about to become the Valley of Darkness if they don't fix their grid problems fast. Phoenix is already one of the hottest cities in America, regularly hitting 115 degrees or higher in summer. But here's what's insane. They're adding hundreds of thousands of new residents while water supplies are dwindling and the power grid is maxed out. Arizona's relationship with air conditioning isn't optional. It's survival. When the power goes out in Phoenix during summer, people literally die. The hospitals get overwhelmed. Emergency services can't keep up. We saw this during the 2020 heat waves.
See right there, that's a message. So if a place like Arizona, all right, that's so hot, all right, their power grid goes out. He said that a lot of people die from just, basically not having their air conditioner turned on. You see, so a place like that, they're going to make sure that they cut the lights out, right? And they're not able to be turned back on, because without them even doing extra damage, all right, people just going to pass away anyway, just from the heat alone. You see, that shit is wild right there. All right. So they're going to make sure a place like Arizona, all right, gets cut off for a very, very long time. Okay.
When equipment failures cause rolling blackouts, the mortality rate spiked immediately. The state is heavily dependent on the Palo Verde nuclear plant, which is the largest power plant in the United States. But here's the thing nobody talks about. Palo Verde needs water.
On top of them being cut out with the lights, right, they have one of the biggest nuclear power plants, all right, which that makes that accessible to being an easy target for Esau and these other countries, you see. And this is why you have a lot of these Arab people, all these Arabs out here at sleeper cells, okay? This is why when you go to America, everywhere you go, there's a fucking gas station fucking within a mile radius of each other, you see? Because all these things are going to play a part when it goes to blowing shit up. All right, you blow up one of these gas stations, it's going to be a chain reaction. It's going to be a domino effect, okay, to be able to blow things up. Okay, that's why when this place gets hit with them 200 million missiles, it's going to be a lake of fire, man, because all these different gas stations, all these different buildings that are connected, that are extra flammable, all right, that shit is all going to go hand in hand with each other, all right? And that's why you're going to see this place as a lake of fire, because there's going to be one thing after another being blown up between cars, between, these gas stations,
And it gets that water from treated wastewater from Phoenix. If there's a disruption to that water supply, which becomes more likely every year with drought conditions, that nuclear plant has to reduce output or shut down entirely. Imagine losing 2,000 megawatts of power right when temperatures hit 120 degrees. Arizona's also betting big on solar power, which makes sense in the desert, right? Except solar panels become less efficient.
They want to bring solar panels, right? But hey, ain't gonna be able to work because you got this devil that's able to block the sun. They got ways to block out the sun. Project Bluebeam could block out the sun if they want. They spray these chemtrails in the air that cause all these, extra clouds that could block out the sun. You see? And at the end of the day, when the Lord comes with them thermonuclear missiles, man, the sun gonna be blocked out regardless. All right, because of all the gloominess, all the smoke that's gonna be in the air. You see, when the chariot comes, right? When the Lord cracked them clouds, that the sun definitely gonna be blocked out. You see, if Ezra couldn't see the region because the chariot was so big, how much more he gonna be able to see the sun and things like that, right?
Temperatures rise above about 77 degrees. When it's 115 degrees, those panels are operating at maybe 70% efficiency. And obviously, solar doesn't work at night when people are still running their AC full blast. The transmission infrastructure in Arizona is ancient and overloaded. Many of the main transmission lines were built in the 1960s and 70s. They're literally cooking in the desert sun, degrading faster than anywhere else in the country. Utilities know they need massive upgrades, but the cost would be astronomical. And guess who pays for that? Your electricity bill would double or triple.
Yeah, but here it is. You got our president that's gonna go wage war and go help out all these other fucking countries, right? And send over, $50 billion to go help another country out, but they can't help us. They can't help their own backyard and upgrading all this technology. You see? Instead, you grabbing your tax dollars and you basically paying them for their new technology that's coming out, that's able to wage war on the Israelites, man. You see? Make it make sense.
Carolina, and this might surprise people who think of it as a stable state, but North Carolina has become ground zero for that. Your electricity bill would double or triple. Number 4 is North Carolina, and this might surprise people who think of it as a stable state, but North Carolina has become ground zero for several converging grid threats that are about to collide spectacularly. The state has aggressively shut down coal plants while becoming increasingly dependent on natural gas and solar power. But here's the problem. North Carolina's natural gas pipeline capacity is completely inadequate for their growing needs. Duke Energy, which provides most of the state's power, has been warning that they're walking a tightrope between supply and demand. They're literally one pipeline disruption or extreme weather event away from massive shortfalls. The Colonial Pipeline cyber attack in 2021 was a wake-up call. If something similar happened to natural gas infrastructure, North Carolina would face immediate rolling blackouts. The state is also dealing with explosive growth in the Research Triangle in Charlotte areas. Tech companies, data centers, pharmaceutical manufacturers, they're all setting up shop and consuming enormous amounts of electricity. The grid infrastructure in these areas is racing to keep up, but falling further behind every year. What really worries me about North Carolina is the physical security threat. In 2022, someone attacked 2 substations in Moore County with rifles, knocking out power to 45,000 people for days. It showed how vulnerable the grid is to physical attacks. There are thousands of substations across North Carolina, most with just a chain link fence for security. It would only take a coordinated attack on a handful of critical substations to black out major cities. Hurricane vulnerability in North Carolina is also getting worse. It's not just coastal areas anymore. Storms are maintaining strength further inland, causing catastrophic flooding in areas where the grid infrastructure wasn't built to handle it. When substations flood,
that's how you know those are man-made storms, because see, hurricanes, once they start going inland, all right, they're supposed to die off. They're not allowed. They're pretty much not allowed to go that far, all right, because the hurricanes need the water. They need those winds that are coming from the middle of the ocean. So once they start to go inland, they die off. But now the fact that they're able to go through the inland and still survive, that's how you know that it's a man-made storm. You see, that's how you know the HARP stations are pulling that shit in when it's supposed to die off. They're pulling it in. This is why we need Yahweh Bashem Yahweh Shai, man. This devil's on another level with his technology, man.
They're not just offline for days, they're destroyed and need complete rebuilding. Number 3 is Texas. And honestly, this could easily be number 1. The Lone Star State stands alone with its own grid, ERCOT, that's isolated from the rest of the country. When things go wrong in Texas, and they go wrong a lot, there's no backup from neighboring states. They're completely on their own. And that independence is becoming a massive liability. We all remember February 2021, when the grid completely collapsed during a winter storm. Over 200 people died. Millions were without power for days in freezing temperatures. Pipes burst, causing billions in damage. The political finger pointing afterward was epic. But here's what didn't change: the fundamental problems that caused that disaster. Texas has a deregulated market that prioritizes cheap electricity over reliable electricity. Power companies make money by cutting costs, not by building resilient infrastructure. There's no requirement to maintain reserve capacity for emergencies. It's literally designed to operate on the razor's edge between supply and demand. And when anything goes wrong, the whole system collapses. Summer is becoming just as dangerous as winter in Texas. The state regularly hits record electricity demand during heat waves. ERCOT is constantly issuing conservation alerts, basically begging people not to use electricity so the grid doesn't collapse. That's not a sign of a healthy system. That's a system hanging by a thread. The renewable situation in Texas is particularly chaotic. They've built massive...
And pretty much that's why this whole entire Babylon the Great is hanging by a thread. And this is why they want to bring in this new world order. They want to bring in these new smart cities, you know, because everything else is part of that old world order. You see, everything over here is old, okay, especially to these elites. See, it might be new to us, but remember, you know, whatever Esau brings out that's new to us, he's already had it and seen it for 50 plus years, you know. You think that you getting a iPhone 21, an iPhone 19, whatever number they on. I don't deal with iPhone right now, so I don't know what number they on. But you think that the newest iPhone is new to Esau? He been had that shit. He had that shit back in the 60s, man. All right. So, you know, everything here is left old for a reason, so they can bring that new world order, so they can bring these new technologies, you see, and you have to adapt to it. All right. Because you had no clue that, you know, these things were old, that these things were going to be they were going to end up running out and not being used anymore. You see, that's why it's never good to, you know, put all your money and buy all these new devices that are constantly coming out, because eventually them shits are going to be wiped away. And that's what you see with Esau, man. He'll bring something out, right? And then you get tired of it in fucking 2 months. And then next thing you know, he got something else new. You see? And then it's the same thing 2 months from here. They don't let you ever enjoy anything, because it's all about making money, and it's all about just keeping the loop going. All right. And then eventually knocking all that shit out to the point where you're not going to use it at all. So here it is. You done spend all these dollars on, you know, new equipment, you know, all these newer technologies, and you can't even fucking use them you can't even use them or use the features that are new on it for that long, because he got something new coming out, you know. Shalom Malak, Yahweh Bashem, Yahushua Barakatah.
Texas, but the transmission lines to move that power to cities are completely inadequate. When the wind isn't blowing during peak demand, there's not enough backup power. Natural gas plants are supposed to fill the gap, but many aren't weatherized for extreme conditions. When you need them most, they fail. What really scares me about Texas is the population growth. Austin, Dallas, Houston, San Antonio, they're all exploding with new residents. The demand for electricity is growing faster than anywhere else in the country, but the infrastructure investment isn't keeping pace. They're building on a foundation of sand, and it's only a matter of time before it collapses again. Number 2 is California. And look, I know everyone expects California to have grid problems, but the reality is even worse than most people realize. The state has the most aggressive renewable energy mandates in the country, shutting down reliable power plants and betting everything on wind and solar, backed by batteries that don't exist yet. The wildfire situation has turned California's grid into a weapon. When conditions are dry and windy,
and that's why you got that's why they pretty much attack California now. You know, going down to San Francisco, you see, and San Francisco is known for that big fog. You see, all that shit goes hand in hand, man. All right. Now the fogs is even more intense. You see, especially with all these lights being cut off. Okay. So you know that they planning something even bigger than what it is.
Preemptively shut off power to millions of people to prevent their equipment from starting fires. Think about that. The largest economy in the United States regularly cuts power to prevent catastrophes. That's third world stuff.
And that's that shit that I was talking about. It's called the brownouts. They'll literally cut off power in certain places, and they particularly do it in the ghettos. All right. And they do it to tell you, oh, we're trying to save energy and we're trying to cause from, blackouts occurring. All right. But shit, you cutting off the power regardless and just making it seem like it is a blackout, and now people get desperate, people lose resources, you see? So, they're going to be doing that more often. All right. As these times get, deeper and they get worse. OK, remember, when you just start seeing certain places have light and then the other part don't have light, that's a brownout. All right. And you're going to always see that it's going to be in the ghetto. They ain't going to be doing that to these people that got hella money and hella bread. All right. Because like I said in the last video, all right, they're able to pull out generators and shit like that. So you're really not going to cut their power out. But see, these ghettos can't afford them things, man. So they ain't got no generators. They ain't got no other way to, turn on their lights. They're not, smart in survival. Okay. They're about as smart as just, standing on the corner for survival. All right. And making a couple of dollars selling a product. All right. But that ain't real true survival, man. They don't have true instincts of survival skills when the power grid goes off, when you have to survive out in the wilderness. They don't got no intelligence in that. You see? So they're able to do brownouts to places like that, okay, and make them suffer.
Right now in California, Pacific Gas and Electric went bankrupt after their equipment caused fires that killed dozens of people and destroyed entire towns. Now they're so paranoid about liability that they'll cut power at the first sign of wind. These aren't brief outages. People go days without electricity, and this is becoming normalized. Californians are being told to just accept that the grid doesn't work when you need it most. The state's renewable energy has created this insane situation called the duck curve. They generate so much solar
and that was
power.
Heavy Daddy says that. Californians, they training them to think that, hey, you got to deal with it. Understand that our grid is not able to work in the times that you need it most. All right. Well, that's even more of a reason why they're going to cut the lights out here. All right. Because the old world order is not needed anymore. So they could just do that at any given moment. All right. Because they want to bring in this new world order. OK. And again, this is when these smart cities come into play. This is why they're building these smart cities, all across the globe. All right. They already have them in certain places. You just don't know about them. Some people haven't figured it out yet. OK.
During the day that they sometimes have to pay other states to take it. But when the sun sets and everyone gets home from work, demand spikes right as solar generation drops to zero. The grid has to ramp up other sources incredibly fast, stressing equipment and increasing failure risks. California is also forcing everyone to go electric. Electric vehicles, electric stoves, electric heating, electric everything.
And there's a reason for that, because when they hit you with that EMP, all that shit's going to go out. If you realize they don't want you to have no more actual cars that are gas, that use gas. Everything is electric. They're even making it cheaper for you to be able to afford it because they want you to turn to that electric, type of environment. All right. Because when that time comes for them to hit you with that EMP, all right, and hit you with that cyber attack, all right, it ain't just going to be your power that goes out. It's going to be these other accessories, right? These necessities that you have, they're also going to go out with it. All right. That's why you ain't going to be able that's why the scriptures say a man shall desire to go flee into another city. He should not be able to. It don't have to just necessarily be meaning through, flying airplanes. All right. It could be by you just trying to travel with your car from one state to another to go get help. And you're not even going to be able to do that. You're not even going to be able to go a couple of blocks up the road. You see, because everything is all an electric grid. OK.
Banning gas appliances while simultaneously admitting the grid can't handle current demand. It's literally insane. They're mandating increased electrical demand while making the supply less reliable. The transmission system in California is ancient and overwhelmed. Many of the main transmission lines were built 60 years ago. They cross mountains, deserts, and forests exposed to every possible threat. Upgrading them would take decades and cost hundreds of billions of dollars. Nobody wants to pay for it, so they just keep patching things and hoping for the best. Water is becoming.
But again, they'll pay hundreds of billions of dollars to the little hatters out there in the country that's not even close to us. You see, but they'll pay out hundreds and billions of dollars for weapons, all right, to wage war. You see, man, listen.
A massive problem for California's grid too. Hydroelectric power, which used to provide reliable baseline generation, is becoming unreliable as reservoirs dry up. Some years, hydro generation drops by 50% or more. That power has to be replaced by natural gas plants, but California is shutting those down too. It's a death spiral of their own making. And number one, the state most likely to face major blackouts in 2025, it's actually a tie between Texas and California because they're racing each other to grid collapse. But I'm giving the edge to California because at least Texas is trying to build new generation capacity. California is actively dismantling their reliable power while demand explodes. But here's what nobody is talking about. The real number one threat isn't any single state. It's the interconnected nature of our grid that means failures can cascade across entire regions. Food security becomes critical during extended blackouts. When the power goes out, grocery stores empty within hours. Supply chains fail.
And that's how they're going to make you bow down to that system. You see, a couple of blackouts and a couple of cyber attacks out here. All right. What do you just say? The first thing that goes is the food. All right. The food is going to go because people going to go crazy because they ain't got no way. They ain't got nowhere to, they got to figure a way out to make up for the food that they're about to lose in their fridge. All right. So the shelves are going to go crazy. Why? Because they're going to go for the dry foods, the canned foods. OK, and that's what's going to cause the looting. All right. And then this is why people going to die off. All right. This is why the scriptures tell you in 2 Ezra, the 15th chapter, a man shall have no pity upon his neighbor. Right. Because of the lack of bread. OK. See, second Ezra 15 is speaking on a heavy note right now. All right. As a matter of fact, let's grab that real quick. All right. Because he's actually repeating. He used that one for number 2. All right. But he also using it for number 1. And that explains why they attacked, okay, San Francisco, California first. You see? Because I'm sure that other parts of California are about to start getting hit with these blackouts more and more. Okay. Let me grab 2 Ezra 15. This is 2 Ezra 15, and let's take it from 14. Woe to the world and them that dwell therein, for the sword and their destruction draweth nigh, and one people shall stand up and fight against another with swords in their hands. All right. And this is going to be one of the main reasons they're going to stand up and fight with swords in their hands. All right. Because of the lack of bread. All right. The lack of, necessities in life. Okay. Everybody being in that desperate mindset. Okay. It says, for there shall be sedition among men and invading one another. They shall not regard their kings nor princes, and the course of their actions shall stand in their power. All right. And you see that, with these uproars of people in the world, standing up against their governments, against their powers. Okay. How much more when the grid goes off? These niggas gonna be looking for the people's houses, man. They're gonna be looking for these politicians' houses. They're gonna be looking for the governor's house, for the mayor's house, because they know that they're gonna be good. They know they're good while everybody else is starving and everybody's down. You see, it says, a man shall desire to go into a city and shall not be able, for because of their pride the city shall be troubled, and the houses shall be destroyed, and men shall be afraid. And most of these houses are going to be destroyed through the way of martial law troops, all right? But also from these cyber attacks, you see? Because once your house ain't got no damn power for, you talking about 2-3 weeks, that the house is done for, Everybody going to be running up in each other's house, all right, trying to find a way to survive, trying to see who has what, all right, that I can use from this person next to me. All right, because in times like that, friends become enemies. Ain't no such thing as that, oh, my best friend, let me go check him out. Nah, man. People are going to be in a desperate state of mind, All right, so they're gonna say fuck their friends. Okay. Oh, I know this nigga got something. I done been to his house a million times, and this is why you don't bring people into your home. Okay, especially if you got nice things. Okay, because these people gonna run house on that. All right, it says a man shall have no pity upon his neighbor, but see, and a man shall have no pity upon his neighbor. Usually, your neighbor's one of your friends. You know, obviously, sometimes you got neighbors that you hate and shit, but for the most part, you know, everywhere around you, there are a couple of neighbors, all right, always gonna be cool with you, and you always got maybe that one that you hate, or that one that you hate, all right, is the one that's plotting against your ass already. You see? And then eventually, when desperation kicks in, the ones that know each other, all right, that are true neighbors, they not gonna have any pity upon each other neither. Right? But shall destroy their houses with the sword, okay? With you know, weapons, they're gonna be running up in your homes, okay? Also going in with, you know, these martial law troops and Esau and his troops, okay? That's a representation of the sword. All right, but you also gonna have your own friends running up in your crib with swords. Okay, it don't even have to be an actual gun or knife. You know, niggas gonna be running up on people's shit with bats. Okay, people gonna have homemade weapons. You know, because again, it's the survival of the fittest. And it says, spoil their goods because the lack of bread and for great tribulation. So it's, you know, at the end of the day, it's gonna be Yahweh Bashim Yahushua putting the spirit on these people to go against each other. You know, because of the pride that they lived in these last days, because they didn't want to hearken on to the word of the Lord. Okay. It says, yeah, that's the point on that. All right. So let me just finish this up.
Credit card machines don't work. That's why I put together that free guide I mentioned earlier. It shows counts. When the power goes out, grocery stores empty within hours. Supply chains fail. Credit card machines don't work. That's why I put together that free guide I mentioned earlier. It shows you exactly how to build a 90-day food supply for $50. Specific items, where to buy them, how to store them properly. It's literally the same system I use for my family. The link is in the description if you haven't grabbed it yet. Water is even more critical than food. Municipal water systems require electricity to operate pumps and treatment facilities. When the grid fails,
I was just gonna say that shit. And all these water systems around here, all right, they're all ran by some type of electrical system that filters the water. All right, because the waters that we drink, especially from your sink and shit like that, them shits is all poison. This is all fucked up. You know, got lead in it. You know, so they're already being ran through certain, you know, certain types of electronics. All right, that cleanse your water. All right, and once the water goes, yeah, that's when it gets real grimy and gritty out here, because it's not starvation that kills the people. Is the dehydration. You know, once a person, you know, doesn't have no water, forget about it. You know, you start going into hallucinating stages, man. Okay, and that's why there's gonna be a lot of cannibalism out here, man, because people gonna hallucinate and people gonna go buck wild in their minds. Okay, and then they're gonna have the thought of just looking at a person and realizing that a person looks good enough to eat. You see?
Pressure drops and contamination becomes a risk. Store at least 1 gallon per person per day for a minimum of 2 weeks. Better yet, get a quality water filter that doesn't require electricity. Medical preparedness is overlooked, but
and
vital.
One of the best things to get for water is I got one in my storage. I've been meaning to get it too for a while. It's called the damn, what's the name of it? It's on the tip of my tongue. Basically, what it does is it cleanses out the water. You could put sink water in it. You could put bad water into it, and what it does is damn, I can't believe I can't remember the name of it. And what it does is it turns your water into what you would call RO water. All right, where it has, you know, it's completely cleansed. All right, it takes all the metals out of it. You know, you use a TD, I think it's called a TDS meter, you know, to make sure all the metals is out of it. Because when you take a TDS meter now and you put it in like the bottles of spring water, Poland Spring, all these different types of waters that they have, all right, it'll still show you about 3.4% of metals in it, which is way better than, you know, if you just grab sink water and you drink it, man. Your sink water is just going to have probably like over 30 point something of metals in it. All right. But basically, damn, I cannot remember what that water thing. Let me see if I can look it up real quick. 2 seconds. Damn, I can't believe I can't remember. Machine that cleans water. Let me see. Aqua cleanse. Hold on real quick. There you go. It makes distilled water. All right. So if you look up on Amazon, they cost about like $1.50 a good one, 200, but it's worth it. All right. So it's a distillation system. I think that's how you would say it. All right. And what it does is it makes you distilled water. Okay. So you put in water. All right. And you could distill it as many times as you want. That's the beauty of it. You really want to distill it about 3, 4, 5 times. All right. So it could really cleanse your water. All right. I remember when I first came into the truth and I was using that shit heavy, you know, I would distill the water that I was drinking about 3, 4 times. Even the water that was, you know, Poland spring water straight out the bottle. You know, you distill the shit out of that water. And then you buy one of those glass water holders. Okay. And you just have a bunch of them put somewhere in the cut, you know, and that water stays fresh and healthy for you, man. And you'll taste the difference when you drink it too. It's good for when you fast, you know, because again, it's basically it drops it makes the water. It's called RO water. Let me see what's the name of that. RO water. RO means let me see. Reverse osmosis. Okay, I believe that's the name. I thought it was a different word for it. All right, RO water refers to water purified by reverse osmosis, a filtration process that uses pressure to push water through a semi-permeable membrane, removing contaminants like lead, chlorine, nitrates, bacteria, and viruses, creating highly pure water. All right. And basically that's what they use when you I'm into fish. So, you know, my fish tank, when you make a fish tank and you put new fish in it, that's what you're really supposed to put in. You're supposed to put in RO water. All right. Which is basically the most cleanest water you can possibly have. When you go to stores for babies, they have RO water. You know, that's why it'll be so expensive for a gallon. You see, because it's the cleanest that it can possibly be. All right. So again, you know, get yourself one of those if you can, a distilled water machine. All right. And purify your water about 3, 4 times. And you'll see the difference how that shit hits you. You know, it ain't coming out of a bottle, you know, that's why you put it in a glass, you know, glass water holder. All right. Because when these bottles, they have what you call BPA in it. You know, so BPA ain't good for our system. It ain't good for our body. Okay. And all these plastics that we drink out of that have drinks and waters, they all have BPA in it. Okay. So get yourself one of those. Right.
Vital. If you require refrigerated medications, you need a backup plan. If you use medical devices that require electricity, you need battery backups.
And that's another reason why they want to cut out these lights, because all medical, that's another tactic of medical warfare, man. You see, once the lights get kicked out, most people that are in hospitals will die. You see, because all these people that are in hospitals are, you know, based on living off of the machines that are hooked up to them. Okay. Once they cut the lights out, all your medications spoil, you know. Medicines usually are held in, you know, freezers. They're held in refrigerators. You know, they have to be held at certain temperatures, you see. So by them giving you a cyber attack, just like Klaus Schwab said that. He said that what's going to make, he said to watch the how he say it exactly? This he was talking about the hitting the grid, right, and cutting off the lights, but I'm trying to remember how he quoted it. All right. He said, watch the wrath of a sufficient cyber attack that will make the C-19 look like a small something, he said, distraction or something. All right. So when they hit that was already showing you that he wants to cut the lights off in this place, man. And that was one of the first things that he said, that when this place gets cut off, all medical supplies are going to be useless. All people that are in hospitals going to die off. You see, that's the easy way just to make people just die off like that. Okay. Because it's going to take days before they turn them shits back on, you know, if not months, and if not months, shit, longer than that. You see? So you can already say bye-bye to anybody who's in the medical that's pretty much under medical, medical, what's the word I'm looking for? That's under medical treatment. Okay.
Hospitals will be overwhelmed during major blackouts, so you need to be able to handle minor medical issues yourself. Communications become critical when the grid fails. Cell towers have limited battery backup, usually just a few hours. Get a battery-powered or hand-crank radio to receive emergency information. Consider ham radio for two-way communication. Have a plan to connect with family members when phones don't work. Financial preparedness means having cash on hand. When the power goes out, ATMs don't work, credit card machines are dead, and banks may be closed. Having enough cash for 2 weeks of expenses could be the difference between getting what you need and going without.
And really, cash ain't even that smart, because they're gonna get away with they're gonna do away with cash. So really, what you want to have is precious metals, gold, silver. You know, you want to have good things that you're able to barter with, because that is when the bartering system is gonna go up when the grids fail. You know, people gonna want certain necessities, so you can barter with people. All right, when you have high-end necessities that people need on a daily basis. All right.
Multiplies individual preparation. Get to know your neighbors before disaster strikes. Share knowledge, resources, and support. A prepared community is far more resilient than isolated individuals. And we as Israelites, right? We don't get along with none of these people, man. Don't get along with none of these people. All right, because the Lord said, never trust thine enemy. All right, these people are not of Yahweh Ba'Shem Yahushua. They are all against Yahweh Ba'Shem Yahushua. They are all enemies. All right, so you might run into a couple of people that might help, because the Lord put the Spirit on them to help you. You know what I'm saying? But you know, you're gonna have to read it through the Spirit. You're gonna have to pray. There's gonna have to be done a lot of praying in that day, man, for you to take someone seriously and to be able to trust somebody. All right, because it's going to be an evil time. All right, so it's going to be more of a silent time. It ain't going to be a time of you really trying to talk with people. You're going to be more of getting closer with the Lord, constantly praying to the Lord to have mercy on you, you know. And even when those times come that we don't have food and water, remember, this is why the Lord has been training our bodies to be able to go through fasting. All right, because it's just going to be another day for you to fast with the Lord, you see. So you not eating and drinking for a couple of days, man, that's fasting time. You see, that's time for you to draw closer to the Lord. And you already know prayer, prayer, reading, all that goes in hand when you fast. All right. And it draws you closer to Yahweh Ba'Shem Yahushai. All right. So me personally, I wouldn't deal with nobody. I wouldn't trust nobody. All right. The scriptures say, be unequally yoked with non-believers, for what fellowship has righteousness with unrighteousness. All right. What fellowship has communion with darkness with light? You know what I'm saying? So at the end of the day, you don't really want to be around people in that time, okay, unless the Lord has a certain spirit. All right. And if he does have a spirit on you for a particular reason, it's probably because the Lord gonna have something happen where somebody's gonna be able to help you out. Somebody might be an actual angel at the end of the day. Remember, we have entertained angels unaware. You know what I'm saying? So sometimes we be entertaining people and we don't even realize that they just angels of Yahweh Ba'Shem Yahushai. You see? So you got to take heed to those things. Forming or joining a local preparedness group. Physical security becomes important during extended blackouts. When the lights go out for days, desperate people do desperate things. Make sure your home is secure. Have a plan to protect your family and supplies. This isn't about paranoia. It's about reality. Look what happened in New Orleans after Katrina. Stay informed, but think critically. Government agencies and utilities often downplay grid vulnerabilities to prevent panic, but they also...
And I'll tell you straight up, do not trust no FEMA. That's for damn sure. Because FEMA, a lot of people try to depend on FEMA, you know, in times like this. You know, he was just explaining Hurricane Katrina. You know, a lot of people were putting their trust into FEMA, but FEMA wasn't helping. FEMA was actually helping the cause for these niggas to be unalived, you see? So you definitely don't ever put no trust in no damn FEMA, man, because that's part of the government, and this government, you can't trust nothing that this government has to offer. All right. Remember, your trust is going to be in Yahweh Bashim Yahweh Shai. The name of the Lord is a strong tower, and the righteous man runneth into it and is safe.
Exaggerate their preparedness and response capabilities. Multiple sources of information give you a better picture of reality. Learn skills that don't require electricity. Cooking without power, purifying water, basic medical care, food preservation. These skills become invaluable during extended blackouts. Your knowledge and skills are the only things that can't be taken from you. Have a plan for extreme temperatures. More people die from extreme heat and cold during blackouts than any other cause. If you live in a hot climate, identify the coolest room in your house and have battery-powered fans. In cold climates, have a safe backup heating method, lots of blankets. Document important information on paper. When phones and computers die,
and most of all, you know, when these times hit, remember that prayer is going to be your only way to really survive this thing, man. All right, turning to Yahweh Bashim Yahweh Shai, calling upon that name. All right, because the Lord is the one that controls life and death, right? So by you praying and you asking the Lord to have mercy upon you, the Lord going to keep you alive. You see, putting your trust in the Lord, all right, is again going to be that knowledge and wisdom that has you stabilized in these last days. Okay, that's why none of the wisdom of this world matters, because the wisdom of this world is foolishness to the eyes of the Lord. All right, but you having the wisdom of the Lord is everything. Is far above, it's nothing to be compared to, right? It's far above rubies. All right. So you having the wisdom of the Lord, all right, you already know what to do when these times hit. Okay, you're gonna run straight to the Lord. Okay, just like we've been running straight to the Lord now. We all have accounts and testimonies on how the Lord has got us out of things, all right, even the smallest things to the biggest things. All right. So how much more in those days, all right, that you know the Lord is gonna have care for his elect. Okay, he's gonna beam the elect up into them chariots. You know, some of us not gonna make it because we're gonna be martyrs, and you know we're gonna die and be beheaded for Yahweh's sake, right? And for the testimony of Yahweh, all right. But the majority of everybody that believes, they're gonna be saved. Okay, so remember that, you know, never lose hope. All right, as the scriptures tell you in Second Ezra, not Second Ezra's, Ecclesiasticus, the 2nd chapter, verse 10, right? Whoever called upon the Lord and was confounded, you know, whoever, you know, let's just grab that real quick. All right. It said, look at the people of old, right? Every single one of them having faith. That's the number one thing that you got to have is faith. That's the base of all things. Without faith, it is impossible to please Yahweh Bashim Yahweh Shai. Without faith, all right, and you come in there wavering with faith, ain't none of these things is going to be possible. All right. But when you have faith, nothing is impossible. Okay. You're going to be able to move mountains if you want to by having the faith of the grain of a mustard seed. Okay. This is 2:10. It says in Ecclesiasticus, look at the generations of old and see, did ever any trust in the Lord Yahweh Shai and was confounded, and did any ever abide in his fear and was forsaken? And or whom did he ever despise that called upon him? For the Lord Yahweh is full of compassion and mercy, long suffering and very pitiful, and forgiveth sins and saveth in a time of affliction. You see, and that's going to be a time of affliction when we're going through those things. You see, so it's going to be a time for us pretty much spiritually, it's going to be like the last of our spiritual ass whooping that the Lord has given us. All right. Because we're going to damn near be receiving the reward that the Lord has in store for us. Okay. So in those times, that's why prayer is going to be so important. You know, you're going to be praying and begging the Lord with all supplication to have mercy upon you, because you're going through what you went through because of the sins that we committed. All right. And it's part of the suffering process, part of that process of purification. Okay. And by you suffering, all right, as the scriptures say, through much tribulation, you shall enter into the kingdom. So the Lord is not going to give you more than what you can't handle. Okay. Let's grab that real quick. All right. None of the temptations that you're going to go through, right, it's not going to be something out of this world. It's going to be something that's common to man. All right. And you're going to be able to bear it through the spirit, because the spirit knows, the Lord knows how strong your spirit is, how much you can bear. All right. This is 1 Corinthians 10:13. It says, there has no temptation taken you, but such as common to man. But Yahweh is faithful, who will not suffer you to be tempted above that ye are able, but will with the temptation also make a way to escape, that you may be able to bear it. You see? So everything that you're going to go through, right, the Lord himself knows that you're able to go through it. He knows that you're going to have the faith to pass by and you know, allow these things to be done, but you're still going to have the faith in the Lord. You see, because he created you, man. So he knows how strong he has created your spirit. He knows how strong he's created your mind, you know, some stronger than others. All right. But at the end of the day, you know, it's going to be according to your ways. All right. According to your mind, what your mind can handle. All right. So remember, you know, no matter how bad it looks, how bad it can get. All right. It's the Lord doing it to you, because he knows that you can bear it. And that's why, you know, having his word and the understanding, all right, it's able to comfort you. You know, that's why it's called the comforter. All right. Because in the roughest times, all right, when you lean on the word of the Lord, it comforts you. It takes you back to that comfort zone, understanding that, yo, this is what the Lord wants me to go through. You see, I deserve this. I fucked up. I sinned before my maker, and this is what he wants. This is what his punishment is, and he wants me to bear it. You see, and by having that mentality, right, the Lord is going to have you bear it. All right. And then the reward is going to come right behind it. It's going to follow up. You see, and that reward is not going to be compared to what the sufferings are, man. All right. So let's finish that up.
Need physical copies of important phone numbers, medical information, insurance policies, and emergency plans. Old school paper backups could save your life. Consider alternate locations. If your area faces an extended blackout, can you temporarily relocate? Having friends or family in other regions gives you options, but you need to plan this in advance, not when everyone else is trying to leave too. Practice your preparations. Do a practice blackout weekend with your family. Turn off the main breaker and see how well your plans actually work. You'll quickly identify gaps in your preparations that you can fix now rather than discovering them during a real emergency. Stay physically fit. This might sound unrelated, but when elevators don't work, when you're hauling water, when you're managing without modern conveniences, physical fitness becomes critical. The grid makes us soft.
And we shall all be doing exercises to make ourselves stronger and better. All right, mentally, physically, you know, even emotionally, you know. So you should all be working out your bodies, all right, to make yourself healthier, all right, for reasons like this, all right, because we're going to have to be as pilgrims upon the earth. We're going to have to run. We're going to have to, you know, be able to run 2-3 miles and your ass is not, you know, in the first half a mile, you huffing and puffing, you know. So you're going to have to go, like he said, you're going to have to hold water. You might have to hold certain things. If you got children, you're going to have to pick up your children and run with them, you know. So it's good that all of us are working out, you know, to the best of our ability. You know, ain't nobody say you got to be fucking, you know, you ain't got to be this top-notch bodybuilder as a man, all right? But, you know, make sure you're working on your stamina, you know what I'm saying? Make sure you're working on, you know, a little bit of your body and making it fit and able to handle certain things, you know? You women, you know, ain't nobody telling you to go out there and be these fucking these bodybuilding women, all right? But you want to tone yourselves up and be able to, you know, really for you women, y'all should be jogging it out, being able to walk and you know, and run, you know, 2-3 miles, be able to walk, you know, 5 miles with no problem, you know, without you being tired. Okay. And it's just good for your body, period. You know, the Lord, his people always had, you know, a certain fit. All right. So we have to stick to it.
Remind us that physical capability matters. Mental preparedness is just as important as physical supplies. Extended blackouts are psychologically challenging. Boredom, anxiety, uncertainty, they all take a toll. Have books, games, and activities that don't require electricity. Maintain routines to provide stability. Keep vehicles fueled.
And none of those things you need. You don't need no games. You don't need no board games and card games. You need Yahweh Bashim Yahweh Shai. This is why you need your scriptures. This is why you got to remember every single one of these scriptures. When all hell break loose, man, and all these times come upon us, man, the only thing you should be remembering is straight scriptures. Remember, on all the counts that the Bible has taught you, all right, that was written aforetime, that was written for your learning, right? And you're supposed to memorize them things, muscle memory with them, man, to the point where if you ain't even got a Bible no more and you lost your Bible, whatever, it's still in your mind. You see, you gotta be like that. You gotta be like Denzel in the book of Eli. They done took the Bible away from him. He ain't even need it no more. Why? Because it was instilled in his mind. You see, that's what that's why the scriptures say, you know, your fathers did eat manna, all right, and are dead. All right. As a matter of fact, let's grab that real quick. All right. Because they were getting fed, you know, they were getting fed physically. And they ended up dying anyway. Why? Because they weren't getting fed spiritually. You see, that's what's going to keep us alive in those last days. Us being fed spiritually through the Spirit. All right, with Yahweh Bashim Yahweh Shai's word. Okay, this is John 6, and I'll just get straight to the point. I think it's around 35. This is going, take it from from 30. It says, yeah, let me make sure. Yeah, 29. It says, Yahweh Shai answered and said unto them, this is the work of Yahweh, that ye believe on him whom he has sent. They said therefore unto him, what sign showest thou then, that we may see and believe thee, and doest thou work? All right, and that's our people seeing is believing. That's the knuckleheaded shit that they do. They ain't got no faith, man. All right, our people got to see shit. This is why these people ended up dying, having the manna, and they ended up dying anyway, because seeing was believing for them. They didn't see the signs when they were in the wilderness that the Lord was doing, you know, giving them water, you know, claving the rock for water to be able to be drank, you know, feeding them quails to be able to eat. They were still mocking the Lord after that and tempting the Lord, right? It says, our fathers did eat manna in the desert, as it is written, he gave them bread from heaven to eat. Then Yahushua said unto them, verily, verily, I say unto you, Moses gave you not that bread from heaven, but my Father give you the true bread from heaven. For the bread of Yahweh is he which cometh down from heaven and giveth life unto the world, which was Yahushua. Then said they unto him, Lord, evermore give us this bread. And Yahushua said unto them, I am the bread of life. He that cometh to me shall never hunger, and he that believeth on me shall never thirst. But I said unto you that ye also have seen me and believe not. All that the Father giveth me shall come to me, and him that cometh to me I will in no wise cast out. For I came down from heaven not to do my own will, but the will of him that sent me. And this is the Father's will which has sent me, that all which he has given me, I shall lose nothing, but should raise it up again at that last day. And this is the will of him that sent me, that every one which seeth the Son and believeth on him may have everlasting life, and I will raise him up in that last day. Then the Jews murmured at him, because he said, I am the bread which came down from heaven. And they said, is not this Yahushua, the son of Joseph, whose father and mother we know? How is it that he came, and how is it then that he saith, I came down from heaven? Yahushua therefore answered and said unto them, murmur not among yourselves. No man can come to me except the Father which has sent me draw him, and I will raise him up in the last day. It is written in the prophets that they shall be all taught of Yahweh. Every man, therefore, that has heard and has learned of the Father cometh unto me. Not that any man has seen the Father, save he which is of Yahweh, he has seen the Father. Verily, verily, I say unto you, he that believeth on me have everlasting life. I am the bread of life. Your fathers did eat manna in the wilderness and are dead. This is the bread which cometh down from heaven, that a man may eat thereof and not die. I am the living bread which came down from heaven. If any man eat of this bread, he shall live forever. And the bread that I will give is my flesh, which I will give for the life of the world. You see, so it was all a spiritual thing, man. Having the spirit of Yahweh Ba'ashim Yahushua, having the knowledge, eating this roll, all right, is what's gonna save you in those last days. All right. So, you know, we have to always think of things spiritually before we think about it physically, you see, because we are spiritual men, spiritual men and women, you know, the few sisters that are in this truth. Okay. Everything is done spiritually first before it's done physically. And by being spiritual, all right, then the Lord could deal with you physically, you see. But because these niggas was all about the flesh, and they were all about, you know, seeking something physical to see it actually, they didn't understand what was happening spiritually, you see. And that's why they ended up dying off, because they didn't have the word of the Lord, man. You see, that's what keeps you alive. It's not so much the bread and the water, although we need these things as spiritual, physical people, okay. You have to understand that the Lord is what, you know, has the power of life and death. So even if you're not eating something physically or drinking something physically, you having the word of the Lord and thinking about it spiritually on a daily basis, that shit you're gonna fly through this shit through flying colors, you see, because you're not worried about what is given to you in the physical sense. You're not worried about being fed, you know, an actual physical food, when you have the Lord's food for thought, which is this word. You know, that's what's going to keep you alive in those last days, man. Okay, so let's finish that up, which is about 3 minutes left, 5 minutes.
Acquire electricity. When the grid fails, gas stations close. Never let your tank drop below half full. Consider storing extra fuel safely if possible. Your vehicle might be your only source of power in transportation. Understand that government response will be inadequate. FEMA, National Guard, local emergency services, they'll all be overwhelmed during major grid failures. They might not show up for days or weeks. You need to be your own first responder. Think about special needs in your household. Infants, elderly, disabled family members, pets, they all have unique requirements during blackouts. Formula, medications, mobility aids, pet food, plan for everyone's needs, not just the...
My bad, my arm got tired. I'm just going to let it, if y'all could just hear for the last couple minutes, because they ain't really showing too much anyway.
Adults, consider your job and income. Can you work without electricity? Will you still get paid if your workplace is shut down for weeks? Having emergency funds and alternate income sources provides a buffer during extended disruptions. Learn from other countries' experiences. Places like South Africa, Lebanon and Puerto Rico deal with regular grid failures. See what works for them. Adapt their strategies to your situation. Americans think we're immune to third world problems, but our grid says otherwise. The normalcy bias is your
And that's
enemy.
funny he says that, because that's why America gonna pass. That's why America gonna be done for when this shit happens, because America has never experienced a third world catastrophic event. You see, all these other countries around us, right, have always been third world countries. And you see, when you go on vacation to, Cancun, or you go to Puerto Rico, Dominican Republic, Jamaica, all that shit. When you go to these places, man, you actually appreciate life more, because then you realize that these niggas living like this on a daily basis. And then you come back to America and your ass, living fucking deliciously out here, man. You don't know two shits about actually survival methods, man. Because when I've gone to Puerto Rico, man, I've done seen places that are knocked out with no power, and you see how these people living like nothing. They got all types of gadgets and shit that they done put together, because they're used to living in that third world state of mind. You see, so America is a spoiled place. So once everything goes here, that's why America's gonna go crazy, because they don't know what it's like to live in that third world catastrophic mindset. All right, that's why there's a movie called Obama 2016. All right, if you ain't never watched that shit, watch that shit. It was about Obama setting a lot of things that were put under our noses. All right, a lot of executive orders that were put under our noses that was gonna actually leave us in a third world catastrophic mindset. You see, and that's always been a goal here in America. All right, for these elites to make it like a third world country at one point. You see, and that's what they're gonna do. That's why they're gonna depend on the system that they're gonna have to offer for you. This new world order. Okay, because being in a third world state of mind, all right, that's how you gain more control of people, especially if they've never lived in that type of scenario. Okay, again, America's a spoiled place, man.
People assume tomorrow will be like today, that someone else will fix the problems, that it can't really be that bad. That thinking gets people killed during disasters. Accept that major changes are coming and prepare accordingly. Here's the brutal truth. Our electrical grid is a 20th century system trying to meet 21st century demands.
Exactly.
While facing unprecedented threats. It's not going to make it. The question is whether you'll be ready when it fails. The states I've talked about today are just the tip of the iceberg. Every state faces grid vulnerabilities. Some are just closer to the breaking point than others. But when cascading failures start, geographic boundaries won't matter. This is a national crisis that requires individual preparation, because national solutions aren't coming. I've been prepping since 2012. And I've never been more concerned about grid reliability than I am right now. The convergence of threats, the acceleration of problems, the lack of serious solutions, it's all pointing toward major failures in the very near future. This isn't fear-mongering. This is pattern recognition. But here's the empowering part. Every step you take to prepare makes you more resilient. Every skill you learn, every supply you store, every plan you make, it all reduces your vulnerability. You can't fix the grid, but you can absolutely prepare for its failure. Start small if you need to.
And how do you prepare with that? You prepare by having this word of truth, man. Because the truth is what's going to set you free from all this shit at the end of the day. All right? There's about a minute left.
Preparations are better than nothing, but start now. Don't wait for the first major blackout to be your wake-up call. By then, it's too late. The time to prepare is when the lights are still on. If this information has been valuable to you, please share it with others who need to hear it. The more people who prepare, the more resilient our communities become. Hit the like button if you found this helpful, and subscribe so you don't miss.
Yeah, I ain't even gonna play the rest because he's gonna try to get you to buy his product. Because that's what he did. But put a good ass message, and at the end, he's just gonna tell you to, buy his product, his 10-step rules of surviving and shit. All right, when at the end of the day, all you need is Yahweh Bashem Yahweh Shai, because even him knowing all this intelligence, he ain't gonna be able to survive. He ain't gonna be able to escape the judgment of the Lord, man. All right, because not once in this whole entire video did he even explain anything of the Lord, and that's how you know that he's smart. He know what he talking about, but he's still caught up in man's wisdom, man. The wisdom of this world that's not gonna be able to save you, man. The only thing that can save you in a time like this is Yahweh Bashem Yahweh Shai, and that's what we put our full trust in at all times, man. So, hey, that's pretty much the point. Lord willing, it was edifying. So, with that being said, that was part 2 of the Blackouts Everywhere. Barakatah Yahweh, Barakatah Yahweh Shai, Call Haloyim La Yahweh, Bahashem Yahweh Shai, Bahashem, Rakak Wadash. Double honors to the elders and apostles of Great Millstone who rule well. Blessings and salutations to the hopeful elect that scattered abroad. The Akim and the Akwat that was listening in. Yahweh Ratazah, Lord willing, that the lesson was edifying. To the next one, Shalom. Keep fighting the good fight of faith and doing as good soldiers of Yahweh Shai. Shalom, Malak, Yahweh Bashim, Yahweh Shai, Barakatah.